Let's go to D. Is it D or Die? That's incredible. Die
It
from
was
Washington,
so much
D.C.
more fun.
Die.
Yes, that's me.
Can I tell you something hilarious? In
Sure.
college, I had a roommate from a tiny town in Kansas. Guy was amazing. He's one of my best friends in the world still. But he listened to like Tony, and he had like NSYNC Christmas record. I did not.
Yes.
I had lots of Pantera records. So Pantera was coming to town, and I'd seen them a few times, and I was like, we got to go to this show. And so he went to the mirror, and he wrote Die on his forehead. But it was in the mirror, so it came out backwards.
Oh, no.
And then it was like in permanent marker. And so he had Die written on his head backwards for the whole show.
Oh, gosh.
And it was awesome. And now, anytime I hear the word Die, it makes me think of that, except that's your name.
That's my name.
Incredible. All right, Die from Washington. What's up?
Hey, so I am a homeschooling mom of 4 kids, and I'm actually calling about my number 3 today. He's 9 years old, and he is probably the cutest little guy you'll ever meet. He's really funny. He's very lighthearted, just a kind boy. But he is also super, super competitive. Like, takes it so much to heart. And I mean in everything. It's not just athletically. It's in board games. It's in pickup sports. It's he plays baseball. So if they lose a game, it's borderline devastating for him. But the other thing that he is really competitive and sensitive about is school. And since I'm his teacher, I get the brunt of it, and I actually get to see his reaction to feelings of failure or losing. And so what he does when he feels frustrated or like he's just not getting a concept is he will just turn into this tiny ball of rage. And what that ends up looking like is he has very negative self-talk. He'll go up to his room and he will scream. And at the top of his lungs, he'll yell, I'm so stupid. I'll never be good at anything. Why doesn't anybody like me? I'm so lonely. Things like that. It just really devolves into everything that feels like it's wrong in his life. And depending on how upset he is, like what he's upset about, and this is the part that I'm actually really concerned about, is he will dig his nails into his arms or his legs until he's either got really deep bruisey-like marks or he's bleeding. Okay. But like I said, outside of school and sports, like things that involve competition or where he can get frustrated, he's just really a good boy. And I don't really know how to manage this because my husband and I, we're really intentional with the kids, like finding things to praise about them, shaming and guilting over sports, school performance. That's not part of who we are or what we do. So I'm really looking to understand and then move forward in helping him deal with these issues in a more healthy way.
That's a great question. I'm going to tell you out of the gate that I want to recommend that you take him to a local play therapist there in Washington. Okay. And off the top of my head, here's what it sounds like. How old are your kids?
I have a 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 9-year-old, and 6-year-old.
Okay. So that's quite the gap.
Yes.
I'm going to rattle off a few things that are just coming to mind. Okay. So we're talking about a kid who is somewhat dysregulated and excessively so for a 9-year-old. Okay. Either, that could be a kid who is quietly being bullied or abused by an older sibling or an older sibling's friends.
Okay.
That is experienced a few things. Basically, he's got an engine inside of him that is too big for his little body to process.
Okay.
And normally that engine slowly opens up over time. It happens through hormones. It happens through puberty. It happens through life experiences. We call that wisdom, right? And the dream of a parent is that we can walk alongside our kids in these milestone markers as this engine slowly grows and opens up. If there's sexual abuse at a young age, boom, you have an adult engine inside of a child body now. If there is bullying that goes on, that accelerates the opening, the growth of this engine inside of this little body. And the body, it's just like putting a Ferrari engine inside of a Prius. The car can't handle the what's under the hood, right? And so sometimes it is external behaviors that have happened to this kid, and that's where number one, I want you to. Your immediate thought is, that's not happening here. That should be your immediate thought as a good parent. Okay.
Yeah.
And the second thought should be, something's happening and I'm going to go get it checked out. Okay.
Do you think that, due to the nature of my husband's employment, we do move fairly frequently? And when I say move, we're moving from state to state. Do you think that could be a reason why this dysregulation is happening?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. I think so. I could go to the store right now. I have an old pickup truck. I could go to the store and get 6 or 7 different types of shocks on my truck. I could get performance shocks I could go over rocks. I could get like cruiser shocks that made it real smooth to drive down the road. I could get jacked up, make my car tall. But all those shocks have different levels of sensitivity to them. Our kids are very much the same. That's how you can sit at a kitchen table and you tell one joke and 3 of your kids start dying laughing and one just goes into a frenzy and starts like, why are you making fun of me? And you're like, whoa. They naturally have a different level of sensitivity. All 4 of those shocks work great. They're just different. And so we often try to crank, like we have kids with different levels of sensitivity, and you've got that, and that's okay. In fact, that's beautiful, and we want to honor that. It just looks different in different contexts, and some things that may empower. I've got one kid that if we moved a lot, it made him very resilient. My other kid, it would have been a much bigger challenge, just because there was a sensitivity there. Could be that. Could be that. It could just, like I mentioned, it could be a sensitivity. The other thing could be this. When you have 4 kids, there is somewhat of a Hunger Games for identity. Who am I? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you see me? Hey, Mom, do you see me? Do you see me? Do you see me? And this is the benefit and the curse of homeschooling, is there is no other adult that can give your kid praise. You have to be the person.
Yeah.
And not accidentally, it's very naturally, our children gravitate, they find a path towards, here's how I'm seen. And sometimes when we catch our kids being good, which you said you and your husband do, which is awesome. All parents need to spend more time catching their kids doing great things instead of pointing out the things that they're failing at.
Yeah.
But sometimes little younger kids will watch the praise that older siblings get for achievement and performance.
Okay.
And they will fall into a path of, that's how I get mom and dad to love me. And then they're not as good as brother or sister. They're not as fast or as smart as brother and sister. And in their little minds, the path towards connectivity with mom and dad has been blocked because I suck.
Yeah.
You see,
that's exactly what I see.
Okay.
Yeah, I can totally see that. That resonates a lot with us because my oldest started college when she was 12 and is a performance pianist. My next oldest is a pianist, or not a pianist, a performance guitarist. And so they have these things that they've excelled incredibly at, and he hasn't quite found his.
And then here comes Daryl, and Daryl loves trucks. Right? And here's the challenge as a parent. Daryl's still awesome.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for the Daryls in the world, princess piano players couldn't get themselves to and from practice.
That's right.
Right? And so the challenge that you have as a parent is some very specific one-on-one time This is a
Okay.
great opportunity for like the weekly breakfast in the morning that you do not have time for, I understand,
Yeah.
but that your kid desperately needs.
Yes.
And it may be
Yeah.
that once a week, mom and little Daryl go out for breakfast and the 15-year-old has an opportunity to teach one of the morning lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be, or dad stays at home on those mornings. But what we're going to start doing is being very intentional about relationship, because we want to, over time, this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be like a 1, 2, 5 year journey you're on now. We
Yeah.
want this kid to realize that there is no obstruction to any path I take towards love to mom.
Yeah.
Right. And so-and-so plays a piano. Great. I'll give my dad and mom super props on this. I was a big Super 5A high school football guy in Texas, right? That's a religion, right? My dad wore my letter jacket around. It was a whole thing. There was like 7,000 or 8,000 people that showed up every Friday to my games. It was a mayhem. My brother went to college on a cello scholarship, and he was a virtuoso. He was incredible. But I remember going to college as my brother was entering high school thinking, I don't know how my dad's going to toggle this. And he did it masterfully because my brother always, he went to all the concerts. He cheered for him. He talked to him about the performance. He made sure he was practicing. He went to my brother's like rock band shows. So it was my dad and my mom did a masterful job of never making anybody feel less than. Does that make sense? And that just is your goal. Yeah. And man, it's awesome when you can go to church and talk about, well, Susie's just won another national competition playing the piano, and little Billy is also good. And Daryl loves trucks, right? It doesn't have quite ring to it. That's your job as mom and dad.
Yeah.
But all that to say is I would set up an appointment with a play therapist. He's 9. I think that would be a really valuable exercise just to get an outside perspective and to rule out, did some things happen behind closed doors that we didn't know about? Is there some bullying going on? Is there some abusive tendencies going on? Is there some overly type A older brother and sister that this 9-year-old is internalizing as less than, like whatever? A great therapist can help ferret some of that out. And it may just be your 9-year-old sees the older ones and says, oh, that's how to get mom and dad to love me. And in a busy house with 4 little kids and you're running around and homeschooling, it's real easy to say, way to go. You did a great job on that exam. You did a great job on this thing. And suddenly the kids adopt achievement as the way to mom and dad's heart. And then as parents, it's our job to let them know on a regular basis, not just with words, but demonstrating it. I'll always love you, regardless of what you do, regardless of where you go. You've always got a place here, both in my home and in my heart, because you're my kid. That's a tough mission for every parent, but that's what we signed up for. Di, thank you so much for your call. Thank you for having easily the best name of anyone who's ever called into this show. And thank you for caring about all of your kids, all of them.